So today we are working on Red, the 2013 Honda Veloster manual. The parts for the clutch that I ordered are coming in, so I do have to do a bit of disassembly. I was going to go ahead and pull the brakes anyway because I was going to put new pads on this. Since I was going to have to bleed the clutch system, I might as well go ahead and bleed the brake system completely and put all new fresh fluid in it. This car has never had that done, so and this will give me a chance to inspect the bearings and the axle shafts and make sure there's no damage. So today I am going to pull the brake apart, see what I have, possibly start pulling the CV shafts out because that will need to come out, and dropping the control arm out of the way on this side, and then I'll do the other side. So let me grab some tools, and that's where we're going to be at. So this car sat for about 2 years in the same spot, had the neighbor's sprinklers on it, and one thing I noticed the other day when I pulled the front wheel off, let me get this out of the way, you can see how much rust is on the end of the bolts and how much rust is down inside there. So I'm going to clean that off with a wire wheel, get all that rust off of there, and I'll see. Yeah, see, these are all got rust in them, so we will see. Alright, so just a little thing. This, I haven't done the back one, but the passenger side doesn't have all this rust, so this is just from all the water. You can just see how scaled that is. Alright, so I got the Phillips head keeper screws out of the rotor. I have applied a little bit of pressure. I don't know if you can see the gap I got between the pad and the caliper, but I was able to pull that caliper away just a little bit. Now I have some room to pull everything off. It's not hanging. One thing I do have to be careful, I'm allergic to black widows and have been bitten twice. And there are black widow, you can tell this is black widow. So I will have to keep my eye out, make sure I don't meet its host. But yeah, there's cobwebs all over this car. Alright, so next step will be to be pulling the caliper, the bracket, and the rotor, and then I'll put all that stuff away for now. I'm not pulling the caliper completely off. I'm not changing the hoses on this car unless I see damage. I did put steel braided on my other car. I'm just not sure if I want to spend all that extra money. We'll have to see. Alright, so back in a second. Alright, bungee cord connected to the caliper to keep it from hanging on the brake line so we don't have any damage. That all looks good. One thing I noticed is there's no keepers on this particular set of pads, so they've been changed at least once, I believe. So alright, so next the pads come off and the bracket comes out. Okay, caliper's off, or caliper bracket's off, I should say. There's the caliper bracket. What I did is I ran all the bolts back into where they go, so the tops are 14s, the bottoms are 17s. I'm going to do this way because it may be a few days before I put it back together, and I don't want the bolts to get lost, so when I put this bracket in the back of the car, all the bolts and everything will be with it, so I'll know where all that stuff disappeared to. But yeah, I don't know if you can see all of this cobwebs I've been pulling out of here. But yeah, at least it's a little cleaner. It's still quite a bit, but up here at the top especially. Alright, so the next trick will be to pull this rotor. So I believe, I don't believe it's part of that nut. I believe it's actually just sitting here. So I just need to find something to tap on it with, and it should pop right out. Let me get a tool and see what I can do. Okay, so I have been whacking at the different edges here with my tiny little hammer, and it's still stuck on there pretty damn good. So I think I have some rust in here. I think I'm going to get my air hammer and see if the vibrations from the air hammer will be enough to work that free. I don't really want to be whacking on stuff around the disc too much, because I don't want to damage the threads here. I do have replacements that I pulled off my car. I also don't want to damage the rotor. I have tapped along the edge, I've tapped along this edge, I've tapped along the front edge of the bolts. Just it still froze on there really good. So I'm going to go grab my air hammer and see what comes up. Okay, so air hammer did not really do anything. I got some PV blaster to help get inside there and maybe free up any of this rust that seems to be holding that. So we're gonna do that for a few minutes. I don't think I can get to anything on the backside that would make a difference. So I am going to hopefully get this off without destroying the rotor, because that would suck. So yeah, so right now we're just going to let that soak for a few minutes. If that doesn't work, I may hunt down my torch and just apply a little bit of heat around where the studs are, because I think once these start to move, it will come off. But yeah, right now it seems to be frozen. I talked to my friend who owned this car, and he said the rotors have never been replaced, only the brake pads. So these are original equipment, 2013, it's 2022, so they are fairly stuck on there. Back in a bit. Alright, so I finally got it off. What I ended up doing was sticking this 3/8 extension into the spot right above the lug, or the nut, and then I took my hammer and I just very lightly tapped on it, moving it around a little bit until it broke free. So didn't you have to use a whole lot of force? I only put this lug on here because I thought I was going to need to use more force, but once I started tapping on it, it literally a little bit of pressure at the top and it popped right off. Alright, so back in a second. Alright, so as you can see, there's a lot of rust. Of course, this is all PV blaster, but there is a ton of rust that is holding that. So I'm going to hit these with a wire brush, clean that all up, get all that rust up out of there. And other than that, it seems like it's in pretty good shape. I don't see anything that's loose or binding. I don't see any clicking. I don't see any tears here along the CV. I don't see any rips. The other one looks pretty good too. So, yeah. So the next thing I'm going to need to do is find a punch to get up underneath here to push this back up. That will take the nut off. You can, if you really wanted to, which I don't know why people do it, you can just put a big impact on here and spin this off without bubbling, taking that knot out of there. You run the risk of damaging the threads here at the end if you keep doing that. I usually just get a punch, lift it up, push it out of the way, and then that nut usually comes out fairly easy. Let's see what else we got going on. Lower ball joints look good. I don't see any problems with the control arm. It's hard to see back up in there, but It looks dry. It's been dry. Nothing's been leaking. So those look good. Tie rod ends. There's no play in those. So yeah, not bad. I mean, these cars seem to hold up fairly well. Alright, so what I have here is an old Craftsman's punch that at some point I had broken years and years and years ago, and I had filed into this tip because it's perfect. It gets up underneath there and I can use it. I see a lot of people using the tip of a screwdriver. It's not really a good idea. Screwdriver tips aren't designed for that kind of leverage, and you will usually snap them off. If you're going to do that, get yourself a very tiny pry bar, but punches actually work the best. There is a groove back in here, so you can actually drive that back in a little bit. The other thing is you can start with a punch like this to get the lip moved up, and then get a flat punch to finish driving it up. But I'm just going to use this one. It should be enough. And I don't know if you can tell, but it took about 4 or 5 taps. I moved it over, did 4 or 5 taps, and it is pretty much up out of the way now. So we can get in there and now take the nut off, which I'm not exactly sure what size that is. I'm going to have to go find my 1-inch drive set and figure that one out. Alright, so that is a 32. Let's see if I can get this off. Alright, and just like that, I used an impact gun with the adapter to fit my 1-inch. Yeah, there's quite a bit of rust down there on those threads. I'm going to go ahead and throw some PV Blaster up in there just so that it'll be easier to push. Oh, actually, never mind. I don't need to. That's weird. Alright, so something's come up and I'm going to have to stop. So what I did was I put the lugs back on the studs with some PV Blaster sprayed into each one, and then thread it back on to help break up any of the additional rust. I put the 2 Phillips head screws back into the thing so I don't misplace them, and I put the shaft's nut back on. So when I pick this up, I won't have to worry about what I did with those pieces because they're right back where they were. And so the next step will be to remove the sensor, the tie rod, and the lower ball joint. So that will be next, but regretfully I have to get some things done, so I'll pick this up later.